On July the 11th, a brief report in the Russian newspaper Kommersant shook the global military community. The Russian Ministry of Defense has suspended maintenance and modernization work on the Kuznetsov aircraft carrier, and may send the Russian Navy's only aircraft carrier directly to a dismantling plant for scrapping. After 8 years in the dock, the weathered sea monster may end its life as a pile of scrap metal. The Kuznetsov's fate is linked to that of China's Liaoning. Both ships were born out of the Soviet-era Type 1143.5 aircraft carrier program, and they are literally sister ships. The first ship, the Kuznetsov, was launched in 1985 and officially commissioned in 1991, while the second ship, the Diverging, was launched in 1988 and then mothballed at a Ukrainian shipyard due to the collapse of the Soviet Union. The turning point of fate came in 2002. China successfully purchased the Diverging, and after a decade of careful remodeling, this abandoned ship was reborn as the Liaoning, a milestone in China's Navy's march toward the deep blue. However, its sister, Kuznetsov, has taken a very different path. Since entering maintenance in 2017, the carrier's transformation has been a disaster. In 2018, the PD-50 floating dock that carried it suddenly sank, and the falling crane smashed a shockingly large hole in the deck. In 2019, a fire broke out on the ship, resulting in the deaths of 2 officers and men and the injury of 14 people. Another fire broke out in 2022, and the cost of repairs has skyrocketed from the initial budget of 3 billion rubles to 65 billion rubles. 8 years later, the carrier has been reborn as the Liaoning, a milestone in China's deep blue. 8 years later, the carrier is still paralyzed in the shipyard, becoming the Russian Navy's veritable gold-swallowing beast. Differences within the Russian Navy have highlighted the awkward situation facing the Kuznetsov. The former commander of the Pacific Fleet, Admiral Avakians, has publicly declared, "The decision to stop repairs is absolutely correct. Aircraft carriers are a very expensive and inefficient weapon at sea, and belong in the future as carriers of robotized systems and unmanned aerial vehicles." On the other hand, military expert Diverging, who holds the opposite view, insists, despite the development of unmanned systems, air cover is still indispensable in ocean voyages. Behind this debate is the reality of a fundamental shift in Russia's naval strategy, a contraction from global oceanic delivery capabilities to offshore defense. Even if the library ship can be repaired, the Russian Navy has lost the strategic pivot point to use it. The direction of the Baltic Sea has been completely blocked by NATO. After the loss of the base in Syria, the Mediterranean Sea direction to lose a foothold. The Black Sea entrance and exit is subject to Turkey. The direction of the Pacific Ocean mainly rely on the defense of the shore-based forces. When an aircraft carrier loses its combat area, its value of existence is naturally greatly reduced. If Russia really to scrap steel price to sell the 60,000 tons of giant ships, China will take over. The answer is almost no. The Chinese Navy's attitude toward the Kuznetsov contrasts sharply with its desire for the Diverging 2 decades ago, and in the early 2000s China might have been interested in a sister ship that could have been converted in tandem with the Diverging to build up experience and quickly form a dual carrier configuration. But time has changed, and today's Chinese Navy is no longer a wimp. Through the continuation of the Liaoning ship, the independent construction of Shandong ship, and then breakthrough electromagnetic catapult technology Fujian ship, China has established a complete aircraft carrier design and construction system. Fujian ship displacement of more than 80,000 tons and all through the electromagnetic catapult deck, marking China's aircraft carrier technology to achieve a comprehensive beyond the Russian. More crucially, China's shipbuilding industry is doubling speed to promote the construction of aircraft carriers, north and south 2 major shipyards at the same time to build a new generation of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. The goal is to have 7 to 8 modern aircraft carriers by 2040. On the technical level, the Kuznetsov's design concept has been seriously outdated. Its skidding takeoff method is out of step with China's electromagnetic catapult technology line. The steam power system is plagued with failures, and the ship's hull structure is badly aged. Military expert Kramnik admits, the ship is physically quite old. The design is outdated and the power plant is unreliable. In 10 years, it will be 50 years old. Even if China were to buy it, it would require a huge investment in a tear down and build up type of remodeling, which would probably cost close to the cost of building a new aircraft carrier. Even more prohibitive for China is the lesson of remodeling Russian-made equipment. The Chinese Navy has modernized 4 Hyundai-class destroyers in a process that was so tedious that it almost amounted to a rebuild. Instead of taking over a problem carrier ravaged by accidents and age, it would be better to focus its resources on a state-of-the-art carrier of its own design. The most likely destination for the Kuznetsov may be in another Asian power, India. Indian Navy's thirst for aircraft carriers, and China's blandness in stark contrast. At present, although India has Vikramaditya and domestic Vikrant double aircraft carrier, but the former aging seriously, the media jokingly referred to as the annual fire champion. If the Kuznetsov can be included in the bag, India will become a naval force with 3 aircraft carriers in the Indian Ocean to form an important strategic constraint on China. India's tradition of military cooperation with Russia has also paved the way for this. 2004, India purchased the Russian aircraft carrier Gorshkov in the name of free reception and payment of modification fees. Although the final cost skyrocketed from $900 million to $2.3 billion, and the delivery was delayed for 9 years. With this example, it is entirely possible that Russia could repeat the same trick, give the Kushkovs for a nominal price, and then make a huge profit from the refit contract. Technically, the Kush is a slip-and launch system with India's current carriers, and its aircraft and operational experience can be used directly. If the deal is reached, India's carrier fleet will get a qualitative leap. The 60,000-ton body of the library ship is far more than the Vikramaditya, which can carry 40 carrier aircraft. Its 3 takeoff points than India's current aircraft carriers more than 50%. The efficiency of the warplanes out of a significant increase. The 3 carriers can deploy more than 80 fighters in the battle group at the same time, equipped with Rampage, air-launched missiles and Storm Shadow, cruise missiles. The radius of the strike has been greatly extended. The tragic fate of the Kuznetsov is like a mirror reflecting the rise and fall of great powers. Its sister ship, the Diverging, was reborn in China and became the starting point for the Deep Blue, while it was eventually reduced to a steel wreck waiting to be dismantled in the shipyard due to the continuous decline of Russia's national power. China and Russia in the development of aircraft carriers on the parting of the ways, revealing the deeper national power competition. China, through the transformation of the Variag, accumulated core technology and gradually built up the independent aircraft carrier system. Shipbuilding industry more to a year into the water, a year in service, rhythm shocked the world. On the contrary, Russia, not only the only aircraft carrier is facing scrapping, its shipbuilding industry declined to even frigate construction are struggling. There have been Russian lawmakers who advocated buying back the Liaoning, but now the proposal is even more bitter. Former students have become teachers, while the former teachers cannot even afford to pay tuition. When the Kuznetsov was sent to the moment of shipbreaking yard, the Russian Navy will formally withdraw from the Carrier Club, becoming the only country in the United Nations Permanent 5 without aircraft carriers. This change not only means the end of the Red Navy's dream of the ocean, but also marks a fundamental reconfiguration of the global maritime power pattern. Once galloped across the ocean, Kuznetsov class ships, and ultimately a very different fate interpretation of the national fate of the weapon's profound molding. A ship's life ultimately depends on the vision and strength of the country behind it. The Chinese Navy's journey has long exceeded the period of thirst for second-hand ships to the stars and the sea of a new voyage forward, when the Fujian ship's electromagnetic catapult will be the warplane to the sky that once led us to recognize the aircraft carrier, teacher, but in the shadow of the dock silently pulled down their own curtain.